Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, audiences online can pick up on authenticity. I really believe that. They can see when you're making something because you just think you should be making that, and when you're making something because you actually think it's something that's interesting. And I think that's absolutely key. I think, like, if you have a story behind what you're doing, if you have like a reason to justify why you enjoy something, like people are just people, and they know when you're being genuine about that, and they love to see that. It's why they're on YouTube, I think, or why they're on TikTok or Instagram or any of these other platforms. That's key. That's absolutely key.
Welcome, everyone, back to the Full Battery Media Podcast. I am Sean Trace, your host, and we are back talking to someone really awesome today. Now, would you like to introduce yourself and tell people a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Sean. I am Aidan Hall. I run a YouTube channel, started about a year ago. We're covering systems, we're covering politics, we're covering credit cards, mainly video essays about whatever I'm finding interesting that week and trying to make it something that's interesting to you as well.
That's awesome. Well, it is cool because you have built a channel that merges a lot of different things. You got politics, media, storytelling, and you're doing it in a really thoughtful way. What inspired you to even start this and said, "Hey, this is something that needs to be created"?
I mean, I've always wanted to do it. It's so, just for reference, like, I'm 24. I grew up watching YouTube. Like, when I was a kid, I was watching Smosh as much as I was watching television, if not
Yeah.
more. So it's always been a thing in my life. It's always, to me, been viewed on the same level, if not higher, than like any other form of traditional media. So I grew up looking up to these people and kind of always had this thought in the back of my head that it might be something to do one day. I was going to film school and also kind of pursuing other things like political science, and there was just kind of this mesh of ideas that I want to say happened about like a year and a half ago, where I'm like, what happens if I like take all the things that I'm recognizing I'm more skilled in, or that I just have a knack for, and I just like mesh them all together. And for me, that meshing of all those things together just happened to be through like putting together videos. I'm good with a camera. I'm good at talking to audiences. I like to think I can write decently well, and I just have kind of a knack for following politics and other sort of topics that you see in the video essays on my channel. So it just happened to be at the intersection of everything that I was finding interesting at that time.
Which is such a powerful thing. Like, I don't think people realize enough how what might be ordinary for you could be extraordinary for someone else, or it be. I live in Southeast Asia, and I run a video production company here with my wife, and I've lived here for a long time. I left LA in 2013, and I moved back here, and I had lived in Vietnam for a couple years after I graduated from college. I'm dating myself. I'm really old, but like when I came back here, like there was some stuff that I saw that I just was like blown away by. Now, I'll tell you this because it was one of the most wild things I've seen. Now, a pipe gets stuck in the US. What do people do? Well, they go in and they have like tools that, route it out. Well, when we were getting the sewage line runs right under our house, like it runs on all the houses right in the front on my street. And it got backed up and it wasn't draining in front of our house. So they sent someone out to clean it. All right. Now, what do you mean getting to send someone out to clean it? Well, they first of all started pulling out these, like dredging it with some tools. But then they got the one dude out and he kind of got into his jumpsuit and he lowered himself down into the raw sewage and he's like with like a big plastic bucket just scooping out the whatever was blocking. I think it was some asphalt mixed with just types of dirt and other things that we don't want to mention, and he's just shoveling it out. And I'm sitting there watching this, it just captivated because I was just like, I'm sitting there, I was complaining about my job the day before, and I'm sitting there watching this guy just going through this experience, and then he gets out and he showers himself off, and there's so many thoughts are in my head at that moment. Like, first of all, like, this dude has to have the most ironclad immune system on the planet to be
Yeah.
able to get in there, and this is something that I was noticing, like, little things like that. My wife was talking about how her mom leaves chicken out after it's been cooked, and, like, I was like, you guys can't eat that," and, "Oh, it's fine, my stomach's strong," and I'm just like, "Dear God, man," like, but what I'm coming back to is that so many times I taught in, a university, a class. It was a creator class, and I sat there and I talked to all these young creators, and I was like, what is it that's special to you? And all these people are like, I want to do this. I want to do this. And I was like, well, do you have any experience in that topic? None. I was like, well, and then one kid came up. He's like, I want to talk about my car. I was like, talk to me about that. Why do you want to talk about your car? And he's like, this is an old Subaru WRX. Like, I grew up playing all of these games, and this was one of the cars that you could play. And he's like, this is the car I always wanted. And when I got it, I just put a bunch of work into it. And, I got this car right around the time my dad died. And this was the place that I put all my energy and attention after my dad passed. And it's really special to me like that. And I was like, make your content. Like, that's it, dude. Like, go with that. Tell that story. Tell the story of the car. Tell the story about it all. And he started making the content, and dude, he got a following right away. And he's like, Professor Trace, I didn't know this was actually going to happen. I said, it's not about the car, man. It's about you and the story that you're telling. And so I love hearing you say what you said about, this is your experience, but dude, your experience is powerful,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, audiences online can pick up on authenticity. I really believe that. They can see when you're making something because you just think you should be making that, and when you're
Yeah.
making something because you actually think it's something that's interesting. And I think that's absolutely key. I think, like, if you have a story behind what you're doing, if you have like a reason to justify why you enjoy something, like people are just people, and they know when you're being genuine about that, and they love to see that. It's why they're on YouTube, I think, or why they're on TikTok or Instagram or any of these other platforms. I that's key. That's absolutely key.
Well, and it's a balancing act though, because like the authenticity, if you're a creator, you are going to be, at the end of the day, you're going to be looking at the data. You have to be looking at some of that to figure out, hey, what's working, what's not. But at the same time, there is the art. And, your videos have both, there's definitely the cinematic quality that you're making, man. But it's also, you're using numbers and data. Like, how do you strike that balance between storytelling, your visual creativity and the analytical work behind your research, man? How do you balance all that stuff?
Well, first of all, thank you. I very much appreciate that. It's interesting. I wrote a piece. Sorry to plug here. I have a
No,
Substack page where
plug
I'm kind
away,
of.
man.
It's a free Substack page, but I'm sort of like working through a lot of these thoughts as I'm building the tracks in front of me on this train. And I had this piece a couple weeks ago called like My Two Brains, where I was talking about kind of exactly this, which is this idea that, like, when you're doing this kind of thing and you're trying to like produce art, hard to say it without sounding a little bit pretentious, but it is. Um, when you're doing that, but you're also doing what you're talking about, which is like studying the back end, studying the analytics. Um, like, for me, what I've found really helps, really improves my workflow is just cutting those two apart. Like, I would say I have manager days and I have employee days. Like, if it's a company, in my head, there's like the manager Aidan and there's the employee Aidan. Employee Aidan puts all his work into just making the thing as beautiful as possible. And manager Aidan is worried about working with possible brands. Manager Aidan's talking about, oh, we have to have the rough cut edit done today. We have to have, the researched outline done this day, and final edit, final pass done on this day. And manager Aidan keeps employee Aidan at bay most of the time. But I find like if you start combining the two, at least for me, at least how I operate, it almost like gives too much like room for you to find places to procrastinate because everything seems so overwhelming. I think when you're coming from that other spot, like if you're so in the zone of like, I'm writing this beautiful script, or I am like so into like color grading this clip right now. And then that thought in the back of your head is like, oh, well, how many thumbnails are we going to make for this video? Do we need to make 3? Do we need to make 6? Are we going to A/B test? It's like that can overwhelm and compromise the other part of it. And so I think compartmentalizing it is I've found it's important for me. And I think people could benefit from trying it out in their process.
I love that. I was talking to my wife about that earlier. I said, I wish I could clone myself and I have a bunch of different versions of me just because I'm not trying to be a narcissist right there.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, I know I can get shit done. But then I sat there and I thought about it and I said, you know what would happen though if I clone myself? Those different versions of me would probably be fighting each other over creative differences, the way we should be doing it. Is it like, do we need to like really, really like, fuck, I need this to be beautiful, man. And the other person's like, just get it done, Sean, you know? Yeah. And so like, there's the two sides, So it really is interesting that you're tapping on that. But it's like also, one of the things for me that I've just always pulled into my productions is like, what's that next step that I need to get done? What's that next thing that I need to get done? And then I hit that goal and I can move on to the next step. But it takes me, making sure that I have clear goals and have clear steps broken down so that I can just get there. Because sometimes like, we're releasing a huge music video. My wife's a big singer here in Vietnam, and we're releasing a big music video for her on Monday. Super excited about it. It was a lot of fun work. But like, throughout the whole process, when you start there and you're coming up with just the idea, some people sit there and like, dude, that's too big. We can't pull that off. And, you sit there. I was watching a video with Tom Cruise recently when he was talking about like achieving things. And he's like, if I want to be if I'm going to be walking on the wing of a plane in a movie, which is like insane that he did that. He's like, I figure out what are the steps I need to do to get there. And then I just start taking each of those steps. And as long as I'm continually taking steps forward, like eventually I'll get there.
That's so key. I mean, like you hear stories about this with like Steven Spielberg, right? Like he grew up near the Universal lot in LA. And so he was always on that lot as a kid. And over time, as he kind of grows up, he gets to spend time in each department. And like to this day, when he's asked about this kind of thing, he brings it up. He's like, I spent time with the costume department. I spent time with the people in the editing bay and the camera assistants and, everybody could. And he seems to credit that with being able to do what he's able to do, because not only are you able to break everything down step by step, but you can see what each of those steps are, why each thing has to come after the next. And you just have like an idea of how this is going to go down beforehand without getting completely overwhelmed.
That's the important part,
Yeah.
And that's what I think that my friend and I, who comes on one of my other podcasts a lot, Professor Heath, and we both taught university students. And it was interesting because we were talking about success and like now, as you get into a university and you will have so many people say, what do you want to be? I want to be a content creator. And one of the assumptions that he and I both were laughing about, because he's now creating his own podcast and he's like, Sean, and I'm producing it for him and we do all the post-production over here. And he's like, Sean, I had no idea how difficult it was to kind of keep this stuff going. He's like, episode 1 was great, man. Episode 10, it's a lot harder to keep it up. And I said, let's talk when we're hitting 200, man. And we're gonna keep you going. And he's like, 200. I'm getting anxiety even thinking about that. I say, and then you shouldn't think about it. Where are we at right now? We're on episode 9. Okay, let's get to 10. And I think people don't underestimate the slog. The constant just. All right, man, let's get up and go again. let's get up. I'm a black belt in judo, and I talk about this all the time on my podcasts. Like, the way I got to become a black belt was by getting thrown on my ass thousands of times. But it's not the getting thrown that counts. It was the getting back up and saying, all right, let's do it again. All right, let's do it again. You kind of become a little narcissistic, a little, what was it? Not hedonistic like that. You like the pain. You're like, all right, let's do it again, you know?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's tough. I thought I'm coming up on a year in on the channel, right? I thought I would have more videos out than I do. And it's because like in my head, oh, every video is going to take 10 days to make. And every time like something comes up that makes it take a little bit longer. And it's just like, I mean, that's part of the process, right? It's just to slog through to figure out how to do it, get better at the steps, get more efficient. But like you have to like the process, I think. Like if you're having a bad time slogging through the middle part, like I do think that's when maybe you want to figure out if this is actually something you really want to do. Because that's so key, right? It's like, I don't know. I put out 12 videos this year. 12 months in. That is not fast enough for what I'm trying to do. But I think what I've learned in the last couple months of doing this is how to get this done quicker. And how to get it done better, but how to get it done quicker also. So when I look at the next year and I look at the possibility of putting out 30 videos in that same 12 months for the next 12 months, like I'm so excited to do that. I'm so excited to just do full 40, 60, 80-hour weeks if it needs to like put this stuff out and to put really cool stuff out there. Like it is a lot of slog, and it's not all fun. Like you're so right there. There is a big middle chunk to all this that's like editing the breaths out in between your shots. But at the end of the day, like compared to any other job that I've had up to this point, like when I turn the computer off at the end of the day and I go to get dinner, like I am more satisfied than I've ever been doing anything else. And I think for whatever people do, if you can find that, I don't know. I'm very young, but I think that's what you should try to go towards, is whatever gives you that feeling.
Because I think you're spot on, man. And it's like, I love that what you were pointing out there with the, the reality is you have to love it. Like I started a YouTube channel with my daughter a couple years ago, and it's called Ailani's Little World. And the idea, the point is because for a long time, my side hustle was teaching kids English in Asia. And it was something I did for a long time. And during the pandemic, like I was sitting there and having to homeschool my daughter because no one was going to school. And I was looking for resources and I didn't find anything that I really liked. And so I was like, I got a green screen and, and a video editor and producer, and I know all about shooting. Let's use our imagination for us to travel around the world when a time when we can't travel, and we go learn about things. And so, let's go to the Amazon and learn about the animals in the Amazon. And we did it, and we, and like the fun thing is it started shooting up, and like, and later on, I was like thinking like, there's no one that has podcasts for kids. So what if I get all these famous scientists on and we start talking to them about like, hey, can you tell us how to make a rocket? What does it look like to be a rocket scientist? And we started interviewing them. And at the end of the day, dude, I love that channel. I love making the videos, and they take a long time. And I'm in the same boat. I'm like, all right, we should be getting a video out a week. We never get a video out a week. There's no way. And I had people, and it's just because the process takes time, and you have to fill them out and you have to feel it out. And we get better systems, but like you have to have joy in what you're creating. You have to love it. And like for all my podcasts that I have, dude, I love these conversations, the editing, I hate the posting part. I hate like getting there and having to release all the reels. But you know what? I get people to help me with that. And I live for these conversations because I feel inspired. And if I can get that moment, then all of the slog is worth it, man.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And I think that's absolutely key, right? It is that, it's that feeling, It's interesting. It's like, so you said you grew up in LA, right? Before you moved to Vietnam?
I lived in LA for a long time, yeah.
For a long time. So I feel like one thing about LA is like, there's so many people with ideas for maybe something they want to do. Um, and I did a bit of independent like videography work, kind of 2020 to 2025 ish for a few different clients and this sort of thing. I feel not too dissimilar maybe from your world where you operate. And what I found is like there's so many like inspired creative people that have ideas for something they want to put out, and maybe they don't have that last step, like they're not good with cameras, they don't know how editing works or something like that, and so they're bringing someone on to do that. They just can't connect that last piece. And I feel like today, if you can if you can just get that step and be able to cross that barrier for yourself, figure out what ISO is. Like just figure out what like aperture
Right,
is.
right.
And that's going to open up so many doors for you. If you don't have to bring someone in to fulfill your thing, if you can just get over that hump yourself, I think that it unlocks a lot of doors, because there's so many people out there who have brilliant ideas and just have great ideas for channels. Like the idea of a science podcast for kids, like a Bill Nye sort of thing. Like I think that's wonderful. And you have those skills to be able to connect that idea to getting it on the internet. And I think a lot of people would benefit from being able to get that last step. And a lot of people are, but I think that's very important.
What I love too, like the other thing too, is like one thing that we did for my wife's music video that I think was so special, and I think it's a compliment to what you're saying, because like, yeah, you're right. Like I remember working with actors. I was studying acting, when I was in LA, and then I was like, man, I like being behind the camera even better. And so I learned all about, making the films, because I moved to LA. I grew up in SoCal, but then I moved up to LA for graduate school. And then while I was there, I was like, I got into some acting, and I got pulled into the movie Angels and Demons by Ron Howard. And I got to work on it, but like, I'm like a social butterfly. I like talking to people and meeting people. And I met some of the cool people on production team, and they just like, dude, we like you, Sean. We're going to keep you for the whole production. So they brought me back every day to work as a stand-in. I went on as an extra, and then they kept me as a stand-in for the whole movie. And literally, I got to stand there as they were lighting the set and watch the DOP and Ron Howard and the whole crew work. And it was just like, dude, it's like, you can't even pay to get this level of access to like, a huge production. And I'm just getting paid to stand here and watch these guys work. And so for me, it was just like interesting, because later on I studied some acting, and so many of the actors were just sitting there waiting. I'm waiting to get cast. I'm waiting to get called up. I'm waiting for that opportunity. And I was like, dude, you have great ideas, right? Yeah. Write something for yourself. Well, I would, but I don't know if I can get it done. I don't know how to use a camera. And I was like, just get any camera, man. And you hear the story about how Elijah Wood got cast in did you ever hear that story? How he
I
got the
don't
Lord
think
of the
so.
Rings? Dude, Elijah Wood went out to Runyon Canyon, for any of you LA folk. He went out to Runyon Canyon, gave his friend a camcorder, and he started going, like playing like he was carrying the ring. He dressed up like a hobbit. And he was like, and Peter Jackson like wasn't going to cast it. He was like going to get someone from England. Like, this is a British speaking, type of thing he wanted. And suddenly Elijah Wood rolls up there, and it just is straight up a hobbit out in the Hobbiton in this video on a like VHS, back in there, whatever type of camcorder like video they use, man. And yeah, and he got it. But it was like him using it. But like it pairs into the next step. Like, we don't have all the skills, but you can get the information. But there's also this beautiful thing where, with my wife's music video, the collaborative environment for YouTube and artists out there is huge. And maybe I've got this idea that I want to do, and I'm gonna run with it. But like for my wife, I got this one awesome like country music singer who is also an amazing songwriter, wrote my wife a country music album. I was like, she's from Vietnam, she's a famous singer, why not? But she sings country so well, which no one knows, man. And I got this idea that I want to do this cross-country road trip, and like, and just go to all these beautiful destinations. I can shoot it, but I was like, man, what if I could find And I was thinking about like, I was like, what if I could find a bunch of creatives that want to do this too? Like, I can find a makeup influencer who's like, I want to go and make content. I'm like, dude, I will film all this stuff for you, give you all this content so you can have all this cool stuff and find
Yeah,
someone who's
yeah.
doing this, find someone who is a DOP that just like, dude, I want to make stuff. Like the internet, like YouTube is so full of people, TikTok, we're everywhere that have so much creativity that are doing it. And like you can find people that just create the synergy with you too. So it's like, even though you have the ability to learn stuff, at the same time, you also have the ability to find people who complement you in this amazing way, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a collaboration part of it that's totally underscored, I think. And I think it is super important. I have a hunch at least. I need to do it more. You know, um, yeah, I don't know. It's probably, I'd say, if there's a character flaw of mine that I'm going to point out, it's sort of this lone wolf thing. It's this feeling like I have the ability to get something from start to finish done on my own, so I should. Like
Mm,
that's something I should explore and do, and I don't need other people to come in and hamper the process and blah 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 blah. But I think you're right. I think you're right, and I think there's people who just really specialize in what they specialize in, and they're like the best at that thing in the world, and your project is going to improve because of that. And I think right now is more of a key time than ever. I mean, I'm in LA, so I know my LA stats, but my understanding is this is kind of happening everywhere, which is like, okay, so the number in LA County is the number of entertainment jobs in total in LA County from 2021 to 2025. This was in a Derek Thompson piece recently. It's down 40%. If any other industry had lost 40% of its jobs in a little over 3 years, it would be catastrophic. But because it's happening in entertainment, it's such a siloed, kind of small corner of just the broader picture that it can go unnoticed. But I think it's important for people to know right now, like the sort of macro picture of sort of this clamp down in streaming production, in major picture production. It's unfortunately a lot of people who've really honed their craft in maybe more of a studio system, maybe more of a motion picture system. Like there's a lot of people out there looking for work that are really great at what they do, that have been doing it forever. And I think there's really something there that people might want to look into if they're looking at getting into this and they're trying to build a team or something. Reach out, scroll LinkedIn.
right? Right?
There's probably a lot of opportunity out there right now in a way there hasn't been for unfortunate reasons, but also there's a lot of opportunity, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. But like, you seized your opportunity, and you know, you dove in and created something for yourself. Like, talk to me about how you grew your channel and like so
Mm.
rapidly grew it, man. Like, what was it that you think resonated most with your audience and helped you grow so quickly?
Well, thank you. I mean, there's a couple different stages. I think when the video started to pop a little bit, like the first video that I put out was on credit cards. I was just kind of like going through a thing at the time where I was like churning credit card rewards, and I was like, this is interesting. Like, there's a couple channels talking about this, but I think like being able to paint a story about this at a broader level, like what is this? Um, it would be interesting, and it did all right. Then I had my second video. It was on like film school. Like these were disjointed topics from each other, and I was just kind of throwing stuff at the wall, I think, hoping that eventually there was
Something was,
enough
yeah.
people, yeah, scrolling the internet on a certain topic that would find it interesting. The second video bombed, but I will say real quick, and this isn't just to balance my numbers out on my channel. It's my least watched video, but it's one of, if not my favorite videos. It's on film school, the state of film school in 2024, 2025. And
Mm,
it's kind of on this idea that like this rapid change in the industry that we were just talking about and everything like that. It's leading an opening for online content creators. And it was kind of like, if anything, my manifesto at the time in video form.
nice.
like like in the video, I'm talking about like there's a lot of people out there, younger people who are trying to start out their careers, who maybe like were gearing this towards traditional entertainment, that were maybe like I don't know, when I was a kid, I wanted to make movies. I wanted to work on the Warner Brothers lot. I wanted to do that. I would love to be a director. I would love to like make a movie someday. But the fact of the matter is those jobs aren't there in the same way they were 20 years ago. That the path of whatever it was that got you to these above the line positions at these major studios, it doesn't exist in the same way it used to. But the history of Hollywood, the history of entertainment, I believe if you are really looking back, it is consistently shifting the goalposts. It's you have the 1970s and you have the birth of these film schools and you have, Coppola, Lucas, and these guys come out of that because that opening opened up. That's not how people used to before the 70s, make it big in Hollywood. But once that opening opened up, they did that. Even the 90s, you have sort of the rise of film festival culture, the rise of indie studios, of, the Weinstein Corp and everything. That's how you get a Tarantino is the 90s because the goalpost shifted again. And that became how you did it. And you have the 2010s and you kind of have these new ways of breaking into the industry. And right now, it's just those goalposts are shifting again. I think the future of this entire industry is people making stuff on their own. Maybe maybe it is just that. Maybe you do just do stuff for YouTube. I think there was this idea maybe 10, 15 years ago that every YouTuber just wanted to have a TV show. Uh, and maybe that's changed a little bit now. But I do think like if you want to work in entertainment at all, like everything's just been shifting so rapidly over these last 5, 6, 7 years in terms of where this stuff is made, where it's watched. And I think this is just it's what you have to do now. Like if you have a story to tell, like figure out how to fit it into the mediums where people are watching and figure out how to make that work, So that was my sort of idea and thought process behind, I think why it's so important to just like get these videos out there. Like that was sort of where my head was.
Well, I think that I had one client that came onto my financial podcast and he was talking about business and he's like, you know, one of the most important things for him was like when you're creating a business and you're like trying to fix a problem, because at the end of the day, any good business is fixing a problem, And let's be real, content is a business too, and what is it that you're trying to talk about? What is it that you're really into? I think one of the reasons that Ailani's Little World, the channel I do with my daughter, resonates so well with me and with the people that watch it is because like that's an actual problem we had. Like I created that because I wanted my daughter to have the experience of, getting to learn about this stuff. And then I created these conversations with these like scientists and other people because, dude, like, God, I would have loved that as a kid. And like, I'm sitting there watching my daughter and what's interesting when we had these, some of the times I'll like record with the expert, like outside of her because she's asleep and I'm doing them like right now, she's asleep over here. Her mom's traveling. And when my wife travels, we camp out in my office. We put down mats on the floor and make little tents and stuff. And so she's such a trooper. She's crashed right now. But well, I'll sometimes record these videos like when she's sleeping but I'll add it into what we film later on. We film on the green screen and she'll read the questions and then the expert will pop on in the finished video. And the thing is that I notice when we do the video the other day, we did this one on business and it was this awesome lady named Rachel Onamusi, who's a CEO of her own company. And she was talking to my daughter about what it's like to have a business. And my daughter was just riveted to the TV. So she's doing a little like Minecraft tutorial walking through like her game and then like sharing about like little business she has in Minecraft. But then she cuts to the next shot and it's like Rachel's giving her advice on businesses. And my daughter was just riveted to the TV. And I was just like, that's it right there. Like it was a pain point that we had. And it was something that was actually I could speak to. And I think that it comes back to, Simon Sinek has that book. It all starts with why, or like something like that, start with why. And if you have a real why for your channel, even if it's your chain of consciousness, even if it's your little bundle of Zen, and that's what the channel is for you, well, then people are going to get drawn to your little bundle of Zen because maybe they needed that in their life,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think you look at these corners of the internet that really pop off, like sort of these niche subreddits on topics you've maybe never heard of, or Facebook groups on, parents of incoming freshmen at some college or something like that. Like these areas where you just see all this conversation and all this activity, like that just naturally comes out. It's like, yeah, it's something that people are interested in that moment in their life. And like there's a lot of people out there. It's like 8 billion of them or something. And so it's like there are people right now who are figuring out what do I how do I get my newborn to go to sleep? How do I write the perfect college application essay? And it's just like I take it for granted sometimes because it's hard to, I think, conceptualize that. But to think like any corner of your life that you think will resonate with people, like there's probably thousands, tens of thousands of people who are interested in exactly that at exactly this same moment. That through whatever magic algorithms we have these days, like they'll find you if you build it, they'll come if it's genuine and you think it's actually useful for these people.
I love that. The Field of Dreams there. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Uh, I love the I have this strange addiction to like I love old gear and I'm still I love shooting an analog, and
Ooh.
this is a Nikon FM2, but it's one of the many things that I obsessively buy that I probably shouldn't. But um one of the things like I love those videos. Like I picked up an old Canon 5D Classic because I just love the old tones on those things. Those old Canon digital cameras had beautiful color science in them, even though it was really, the first gen of the digital cameras. But one of the things I love those videos, like, is this camera still relevant in 2025? Is this still good? How about these two? And there was some guy out there who was like, hey, I like this whole thing. I want to buy it. Maybe I should make this video to see if this is, tell people why I think it's still relevant. And one of the videos I was looking at had 100,000 views. So there was at least 100,000 people that were like, yeah, I like that. I might buy one of those for whatever reason. And let's see if it's actually relevant. You know, and I think that that's coming back to what you were talking about is like, it really is about having that thing that is special for you, man. And you don't know what that is. It's different for all of us.
No, 100%. 100%. It's almost like an ego death sometimes. You see those like 100,000 view things. It's like, oh, I thought this was my thing. It's like, oh no, this is everybody's thing, or this is these 100,000 people's things. And it's sort of like as much an opportunity as it is like, whoa, this is reorienting my whole world, figuring out there's a whole community behind this that's also into this.
Right.
It's
Well,
interesting.
let me ask you this. If you could go back and give yourself advice about how to be a better creator, what advice would you give yourself, when you were starting out this journey?
It's funny because it's relatively recent.
Yeah, right.
It's like in my head, I'm like going back and seeing like a 10-year-old version of myself. It's like, no, I'm going back and seeing a 23-year-old version of myself. I'm 24.
Yeah.
um, I would emphasize discipline above anything else. I think everyone who makes videos kind of has the core in them of like the thing that will shine through in the videos if they just do
Mm,
it enough, if they just produce it. I think for me, it's just finish the outline. Just like listen, it's a long script, but just crank it through because it's going to be a really good video. And it's like this is tough right now, but just make it. You know,
yeah.
I would say it's tough. If I had to tell myself a year ago something more specific, though, it would be like people are interested in what you're putting out. Like
I
like
love
that
that.
was a huge bump for me. That was like just the first time 100,000 people watched a video of mine. Like it reoriented how I viewed all of it. Like I try to think that I have the self-confidence to know that what I'm talking about is going to latch on to people. And I think there's clearly enough of that got me to make the video in the first place. But there is something of like realizing these people are out there that has been so incredible for me. It's been so key at like driving me to just try and make like the best thing that I possibly can. You know, I don't like to think that it's just because of external validation or whatever, but it's just like,
But that's pretty nice
there's
sometimes too.
substance. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
That feedback, that positive reinforcement of some type. Where do you see yourself going in the next 5 years? Where do you want to be heading?
I would love, if I had my way of where this is going, I would love to be able to do this just at scale. I have so many ideas for videos. I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard before I started putting out videos was from Stephanie at the Game Theorists. She was on the Colin and Samir show. And she was talking about, they've got like 4 or 5 different channels on under their banner. And she was talking about launching a new channel. What do you have to have before you do that? And she's like, well, you need to put together a show Bible. It's like, you need to have a list of a year's worth of video ideas that you can pump out right now. And I did that before I put out a single video. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. That was always something I was scared of. I was always scared that like, I'd squeeze this orange too tight and I'd run out of juice. But that's not true. I think for most people, that's not true. I think they maybe think that, and I don't think that's true. So in 5 years, I would love to keep squeezing that orange. I know there's so much more there. I want to do it at the next scale up because I would love to hire some talented friends of mine that I know are very good at this, that are looking for work. And I would just love to make that a sustainable thing where we all get to, for our 9 to 5, make really awesome stuff. Like that's the dream.
I love that, man. Well, brother, where can people find more of your work? Where can people look you up?
Oh man, I would say YouTube. We got the different socials, we got Instagram and everything like that, but it's under my name. That's Aidan Hall on YouTube.com. We're trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That's the goal. If we don't hit it, it's okay. But that's the that's the goal. So I would love if people would join the channel and just check out some of the videos. Very proud of them, and hopefully you like them too.